My father had always been a passive man, avoiding confrontation at all costs. He would rather accept injustice than stand up for himself. Whether it was a stranger bumping into him on the street or his employer making mistakes with his paycheck, my father would simply shrug it off, unwilling to rock the boat. This behavior had led to a tumultuous childhood, where my narcissistic mother had complete control over him. She had manipulated him into quitting his job and becoming a stay-at-home dad, forcing him to do every chore and constantly berating him. She even went so far as to involve the authorities, making his life a living hell. Through it all, my father remained silent, never once defending himself or standing up for me when my mother turned her anger towards me. As I grew older, the extent of my father's weakness became increasingly clear. When my mother kicked me out of the house at 18, he simply sat there, his face etched with defeat, unable to utter a single word in my defense. It was in that moment that I realized how deeply his cowardice had wounded me, and I felt a white-hot rage boil up inside me. I joined the Air Force shortly after, desperate to escape the toxic environment. It was a long and arduous journey, but with the help of therapy and the support of the amazing people I met, I was able to heal and move forward. Still, the scars of my past never fully healed, and the resentment I harbored towards my father remained a constant, nagging presence in my life. And now here I was, back in the midst of that same dysfunctional family, forced to confront the demons of my past. As I mingled with my relatives, I couldn't help but overhear my father's words, once again excusing the behavior of others and preaching the virtues of forgiveness. It was as if the last decade had never happened, and he had learned nothing. The switch in my head flipped, and suddenly, I was that angry 18-year-old again, consumed by a fury that threatened to consume me. I turned to my father, my voice rising with each word, unleashing a torrent of pent-up frustration and resentment. I told him, in no uncertain terms, that he was a pathetic man, a disgrace to the family, and that no one would ever respect him. The words poured out of me, a release of emotions I had been holding back for far too long. My girlfriend, sensing the tension, quickly ushered me away, driving me home in silence. As we sat together in the car, the adrenaline slowly fading, I felt a wave of shame wash over me. I had lost control, allowing my past to dictate my present, and I knew I needed to make amends. But first, I needed to confront the root of my anger, my father. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. I knew that I needed to resolve the events of the previous night, both for my own peace of mind and for the sake of my family relationships. I first spoke to my girlfriend, offering a sincere apology for the display she had witnessed. She reassured me that nothing was wrong, that she understood the dynamics of my family and the deep-seated issues I had been dealing with. With her support, I turned my attention to my extended family. I called my grandparents, acknowledging that my outburst had disrupted the family reunion and apologizing for the inappropriate setting in which I had confronted my father. I explained that, while the feelings I expressed were genuine, I should have chosen a more private moment to address them. During the conversation, my grandfather revealed something unexpected. Apparently, my outburst had a profound impact on the family, prompting them to confront my father one-on-one. My grandmother, known for her protective nature, had even gone so far as to kick him out, a testament to the depth of the family's concerns about his behavior. As my grandfather spoke, a new layer of understanding began to emerge. It seemed that my father's relationship with his own siblings had long been strained, with his brothers often taunting him and maintaining an uneasy dynamic. My grandparents had always been aware of the issues, but it was my emotional explosion that finally pushed them to take action. Hearing this, I felt a sense of relief, but also a renewed determination to understand the roots of my father's behavior. I expressed to my grandparents that I had no intention of forcing an ultimatum or making demands, but that I needed to distance myself from the situation until I could handle being around my father more comfortably. To my surprise, my grandparents revealed that they had already decided to take a similar approach. They told me that they had given my father an ultimatum. Either he sought out intensive therapy and made a genuine effort to improve himself, or the family would have no choice but to maintain a permanent distance. This news was both heartening and bittersweet. On one hand, I was relieved to know that my family was finally taking the necessary steps to address the underlying issues. But on the other hand, the realization that my father's behavior had alienated even his closest kin was a sobering reminder of the depth of the damage he had inflicted. As I processed this information, I reached out to the extended family members, expressing my gratitude for their support and understanding. I asked them to relay the message that I was fine and did not need any additional outreach, as I needed time and space to work through my own emotions and healing process. The response from the extended family was mixed, with some older members expressing their displeasure at my lack of respect towards my father. However, the majority seemed to understand and support my decision, recognizing the gravity of the situation and the need for me to prioritize my own well-being. With this newfound clarity and the support of my family, I knew it was time to have one final conversation with my father. I was determined to find a way to move forward, either with him or without him, but I needed to ensure that I had done everything in my power to make peace. I met my father at a local coffee shop, unsure of what to expect. As I approached the table, I could see the toll the recent events had taken on him. His usual stoic demeanor had given way to a defeated, almost hollow expression. I decided to start the conversation with a simple question, asking him how the advice he had given to his coworker had been received. His response was telling. He admitted that several of his coworkers no longer interacted with him, a clear indication that his words had fallen on deaf ears. Emboldened by this revelation, I then asked him a more direct question. Did he truly believe that everything he had done for me as a child was for my benefit? His silence was deafening, and I knew in that moment that he harbored some level of self-awareness about the harm he had allowed to be inflicted upon me. Finally, I posed a question that had been weighing on my mind for years. Did I have any regrets about how I was treated as a child, and did he think he had ever done anything wrong? Again, his response was muted, a simple acknowledgement that he could have done more. In that moment, I realized that no matter how much I had wanted him to explain himself, to justify his actions, he simply did not have the answers. His years of passivity and avoidance had left him incapable of truly confronting the damage he had allowed to occur. Rather than continuing to press him, I decided to take a different approach. I told him that this should be our final goodbye, and that I hoped he would seek the help he so desperately needed. I knew that for my own healing, I had to let go of the hope that he would ever truly change or take responsibility for his role in my trauma. As I walked away from that coffee shop, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The years of pent-up anger and resentment were still there, but they no longer consumed me. I had done what I could to find closure, to understand the complexities of my family's dynamics, and to make peace with the fact that some wounds may never fully heal. In the weeks that followed, I learned that the situation with my father had taken an even more dramatic turn. Apparently, his attempt to reconcile with his brothers had been met with a scathing verbal lashing, one that made my own confrontation pale in comparison. The backlash was so severe that my father had responded by destroying his apartment and then fleeing, leaving my family to worry about his mental state and his whereabouts. While part of me felt a twinge of concern for my father, I knew that I had made the right decision to distance myself. My own healing and well-being had to take priority, and I couldn't allow myself to be drawn back into the chaos of my family's dysfunction. I would continue to work on myself, to maintain the support system that had carried me through the darkest times, and to forge a future free from the shadows of past.